Hello there, my name is Martin Henley. This is the Effective Marketing Content Extravaganza. And if you're new here, you couldn't possibly know that I am on a mission to give you everything you could possibly need to be more successful in your business, providing, of course, what you need to be more successful in your business is to know more about and be implementing more enthusiastically, more efficiently, and more effectively sales and marketing in your business, which is, of course, what you need. You need more customers more profitably. So what goes on here is I'm here giving you everything I know about sales and marketing. That's the What the series that happens on a Monday. On a Tuesday, I bring in anyone I can find with experience to share that will be useful to you if you are looking to be more successful in your business. On a Wednesday, every other Wednesday, Melanie Farmer comes through. We look at the marketing news and we speculate wildly about what it might mean for you in your business, in your marketing life. And on the other Wednesday, I review so you don't have to. Occasionally on a Thursday, I'm here thinking out loud. And on a Friday, we react to the very best and the very worst of marketing content on the internet. So if that sounds like it might be interesting and useful, please tell me it does. Now would be the very best time to like, share, subscribe, comment, get involved, because that will give us the motivation to continue on this epic journey. So if you are catching this on the day that it premieres, it will be a Tuesday, which means it's Talk Marketing, which means we have a guest for you. So today's guest has sales and marketing experience going all the way back to 1995 when she was selling Dale Carnegie training. Since then, she has held a number of business development and facilitation-type roles, including Innovation Commercialization Manager at the Sussex Innovation Center for more than 10 years and more than 3 years as Manager of Innovation at Trobe University, as well as being Associate Director of Research, Engagement, Development and Innovation at Western Sydney University. She is currently studying for a Master's in Biomimicry, co-hosting the marketing news on this channel, and concierge of co-creation at Crazy Might Work. What you may not know about her, what I certainly didn't know about her, is that between the ages of 10 and 12, she was a tightrope walker, juggler, clown, and horse trainer in a circus. Today's guest is, huge friend of the show, Melanie Farmer. Good afternoon, Melanie Farmer.
Good afternoon. Great to be here.
It's great to have you here. I have to tell you, yesterday I finally posted the 100th episode. You're only the second person to come back for 2 Talk Marketings, but we've done like 20 marketing newses between us, so this is like normal for us. How could I possibly not know that you were in the circus? Who else do I know who might have been in the circus that I've got no idea about?
Well, if I've been in the circus, who else has? Maybe that's a good conversation opener for people. Say, have you been in the circus? Just checking, because there's a surprising number of us that we don't realize that every second person's been in the circus.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So I'm interested to know, I thought you either grow up in the circus or you run away to the circus. I thought those were the 2 entries into the circus, but that, you ended up in the circus when you're 10, your family weren't in the circus. How on earth does that come about?
Yeah, well, so I grew up in a very alternative community, right?
Right.
And the school also was a community school run by the community, and so it was really anchored in Montessori principles. For those who know, what were the guiding rules of the school. But I think so. One of the parents happened to be a very practiced circus professional. So he rode unicycle, he juggled, all that. Now, each parent would offer up classes to the school, to the children in the school. So, for example, my dad's a psychologist, and he would teach us traditional analysis and, understanding your inner child and concepts of how the brain works. And this guy, Bruce, he would teach us circus skills. And it was so popular that we ended up developing a circus as a school. And so everyone was involved. The whole community got involved. I think we had about 50 players, right? And I was one of the players. All kids, called the Kids Circus. And yeah, we had we, you know, we were packing out like a huge. I think we must have had about 30,000, like huge crowds in the festivals. We'd set up the circus ring. We had trapeze. We had tightrope, unicycles, and lots of little kids dressed as clowns doing basically Lion King reenactments, which was pretty cute. They were all like 5, and they'd come on and be dangerous lions, so that was cute. No actual animals, so it was just people. Think about Cirque du Soleil, it was that. And we had some fantastic coaches actually come in and really lift it up. So it was quite professional in the end.
Wow.
Incredible experience. Very you know, it's a great way to belong. Boy, if you want to belong to a community, that's the way to do it. Very creative and very
Wow.
stimulating. Lots of fun. Fun.
It sounds like it. And then did it just run out of steam after 2 years, or did it get disbanded, or how did it end?
No, it's been going for years and years and years. It was going. I don't even know if it may still be going. So yeah, it was a permanent fixture. The interesting thing about it, looking back, like with an intellectual, is it actually helped us to use all of our senses. So we were learning through touch and smell and taste. We weren't just sitting with a book in a classroom.
Yes.
You really had to go. I mean, I walked the tightrope and did lots of stunts on the tightrope. Now, in order to do that, you've really got to nail balance. And so that turns out to be really good for your brain, being good at balancing when you're young. So you're kind of like lighting up different neurotransmitters, all of that. So and juggling and things. These are great things to learn at a very young age because your brain is just developing.
Of
Um,
course they are.
and if yeah, yeah. So I mean, think about the skills involved in riding a unicycle. Now, he would have been what 4 years younger than me. Ben, he was so good at the unicycle. It was like attached to it. So he could go up and down hills and on the grass, and he'd just ride around on his unicycle as if it was a part of his body. So he just never fell off. But that took a lot of falling off to get to that point. And when you're very young and malleable, of course, um, you're happy to learn something like that. But you
Yes.
can imagine that must have been something to just connect parts of the brain that are for most of us, switched off or not activated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so this is interesting because this isn't a conversation that we've had before, but it is amazing in these 100 odd people that I have spoken to, how many people come to sales and marketing from some kind of performance background. Like they might have been DJs, they might have been singers, they might have been actors. I auditioned, you won't know about this, for the BBC's production of Oliver Twist when I was about 12, and I got rejected because my cheeks were too fat. So I didn't look orphan enough. Like,
Oh,
isn't
yeah,
that
you need
sad?
to be very
Yeah.
gaunt.
Yes. So it makes me wonder how much of sales and marketing is performative. Do you know what I mean? Where we're all doing jazz hands while we're waiting until the actual effect to happen or otherwise. So, I mean, that's just something that's occurred to me. I don't know if I did your introduction before. I don't think I did because you were like really early before I was really investing in the introductions. I was kind of interested about how much of your experience is, well, that's like meta. If you're selling Dale Carnegie training, that's like meta. That's like doing sales and marketing of probably the most effective sales and marketing training, maybe the most famous, most widely used. And then it's all about kind of innovation, and it's all kind of on the cusp of between business and academia, which is kind of interesting. That's where you've always been.
Yeah, I think the connection to academia is education. So I started as a primary school teacher and in my very early 20s. So, really, my first sort of proper job out of university. So, I did a teaching degree. And so, education from that very young age, that was always important to me. So, I have continued learning since. So, I think there's the term lifelong learning that we use a lot now, And that was me. So I always like learning new skills. And what I find is that I've got better and better at connecting the dots between the new skill I'm learning and what has come before. So I really underestimated what people have to offer when they're in their 80s and 90s. Um, for those 80 and 90-year-olds who have continued to learn throughout their lives, they've connected more dots than any of us. So it, there's some wisdom there that is just often missed. And I want to be that person. So when I'm 80, I want to be someone who's connected a lot of dots. But in order to do that, you've got to keep learning, and then you've got to keep connecting dots and bringing things together and things. So that's why I guess I went from education into, from innovation, supporting the translation of academic inventions into commercialization. And so you're learning every day in that field because you're talking to academics who might be physicists, they might be accountants, they might teach marketing, but whatever it is, they've developed something that has value in the world, and they don't necessarily have the skills or resources to make that leap into commercialization. So I was constantly being presented with these amazing discoveries from all of these, chemistry professors and so forth, and learning from them, but then translating that into real world language and helping them to understand who actually is going to care about this and how do we commercialize that and how can you simplify that. What is actually a minimum viable proposition to get this thing tested and out and validated? And those are things that are not necessarily, you don't do a PhD in chemistry and learn about minimum viable proposition. You do learn about experiments. So there's a lot of, parallel language, but it's slightly different to in the commercial setting. So, yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. Cool. I had no idea you were so interesting, I'll be honest.
Yes,
Um,
my best kept secret.
okay, cool. Right. So, but I shouldn't be surprised that you kind of had this alternative upbringing. And I mean, I think that's a really interesting and cool role where you are commercializing ideas or otherwise. It goes to the core of marketing. I think it goes to the core of like product, and maybe, and to my mind, a little bit where it goes wrong, but where it can't be market led because it's so innovative. Do you know what I mean? So I'm always struggled. I've always challenged a little bit like innovation, because what I want to do is develop a really strong value proposition, a really effective product. Do you know what I mean? And then go to market with that. I don't think that necessarily comes from innovation. Innovation is much more risky than that. So that's really interesting. And of course, now what you're doing is you are selling innovative thinking, transformations, those kinds of things. Which brings us to where we are today. I don't know how formalized this was previously, but now on Talk Marketing, there's 5 questions. So the first question is, how are you qualified to talk to us about your specialist subject? Who are you working with? How are you adding value to their lives? That might still work today. Your recommendation for people who want to get better at your specialist subject, what people should read, and you're going to have to throw a couple of people under the bus for me to grill in this fashion. So we should get to what your specialist subject is, because you're here again because you're doing something quite interesting and weird to engage people in like sales meetings and presentations and things. And I really like it, even though it is for me on the weirder side. I couldn't see myself doing it necessarily. Do you know what I mean? And I think it depends on the environment. So what should we call your specialist subject today? Shall we call it innovative ways to engage in sales meetings and presentations? Let's call it that.
Yes, innovative sales techniques.
Innovative sales techniques. Okay. All right. So here's the
Absolutely.
question then. The question is, how are you, Melanie Farmer, qualified to talk to us about using innovative sales techniques to engage in weird and interesting ways in sales meetings and presentations? What is it you've been up to? And Yeah, that's what I need to know.
Right. So qualified, there's qualifications and experience. So so I've got the double whammy with that. So I guess that I've got multiple certificates in sales management and so forth, all of that, sales advantage certificates and all those things. And I ran an accredited certificate course in Dubai for 5 years on this very thing, innovative sales management. Um, and with that course, this was one of the things that I introduced, which was looking at the different senses and understanding that we really massively overestimate the effect of hearing and vision, and we think that I don't know if we think it, but like we rely heavily on those two senses without understanding that the brain is engaged with all of the senses. Taste, touch, and smell are just neglected. And so, really, since probably 2003, I started to think about the other senses in sales presentations. And if anyone has had the experience where you're in an office and you're trying to come up with something creative versus that you're in the cafe or down the pub coming up with something creative, it is weirdly a lot easier when you're not in the office. And the office is not really designed for creativity in general. Of course, there's a lot of shift happening in that sector in the last few years to get people back in the office and being creative. But in general, our good ideas happen when we are in a different setting. And that different setting has different smells, sound, lighting. So you can engineer that. If you want your client or prospective client to feel relaxed, energized, engaged, then you can actually engineer that by changing the lighting and sound in the room where you're pitching. But in general, we just go into, say, a boardroom. Your audience is sat there, you're using PowerPoint, you've used way too much text, and you're trying to talk and have them talk and read, listen to you and read at the same time. And now they don't really like you because you've angered them because they're sitting there trying to read and they're like, will you stop talking? Or they're sitting there trying to listen to you and you keep presenting text that they haven't had a chance to read. And the worst thing you can do is say, I'll give you a chance to read that. And then you don't. You just carry on talking. So, that's just offensive and unproductive. And there are just a lot of other ways you can do sales pitches. So, so I've been using the other senses and really with great effect. And I guess the thing is that it's very personalised. So I can walk through a couple of examples, but I'll just pause there and see how that's landing.
Just check in with me, make sure I'm still with you. Okay, because it's never occurred to me how, what's the word? Hostile, like an environment, a sales meeting is. Do you know what I mean? Like you're walking into their office typically, it's got like bare white or magnolia walls, like cheap carpets, like basic minimalist type. Like it's a very kind of barren environment. It's their environment, so you're on their patch. Do you know what I mean? So, um, and then, I mean, this is where I kind of depart from the norm, where I don't do pitches because they don't give a shit what I'm saying. Do you know what I mean? So mine wouldn't be necessarily, I would never want to present in that situation. It would always have to be a conversation and they'd have to be doing 90% of the talking or else it's no good. Do you know what I mean? I need to learn about where they are if I'm going to move them on. But yeah, I can imagine where, I mean, we call them pitches, don't we? But I've always struggled to imagine that people are going in with a deck. I know they are because I've had customers who've done it and they're presenting what they do. And it's like if there is 360 degrees of possibility, you're only presenting one of them. Do you know what I mean? So that's you've got a 1 in 360 chance, and there might be 720 degrees or 1,500 degrees. Do you know what I mean? So my thing has always been to get them talking, but it's never really occurred to me how, I don't know if the word is hostile, but I don't think it is hostile. What are those environments? But those environments aren't conducive to collaboration, openness, sharing. Do you know what I mean? They're like, the lighting will be office lighting, the furniture will be office furniture, the the decoration will be office decoration. Like, most of these rooms don't even have anything hanging on the wall. Like, there's nothing. Do you know what I mean? It is, yeah. So okay, so that's occurring to me. These are quite.
Yeah, these office buildings, and of course they are really, really different these days. Like you can see a lot of lighting being changed, a lot more investment in green, having plants and changing the air quality. That is really coming. But if you look at the majority of offices still, the design principles of these offices are three things in order. First being cost, safety, efficiency. So they don't include productivity or psychological safety. So the safety that they're designing it for is that if there's a fire, you can get out and you can safely see everything that you need to see to get out. So you've got big exit signs and whatever. It's not designed like, let's say, a monastery, which is far more muted lighting, very, very quiet, and there's not a lot of signs everywhere. And there's lots of nooks and crannies. But that is a place that you might say is a happy place, a monastery. So it will have lots of vistas and things like that, and looking at lots of greenery that you'd be looking at. But it's not designed for, fire safety first. That's not what you would think of. And it's probably not cheap. That it's probably made from marble or whatever. So there's different design principles. But if you're working within a boundary of this is the design principles, then I need to interrupt that because I don't want my client to associate, a fire safety design principle as the number one, reference point for working with my organisation. I want them to feel energized, creative, excited, and so if I like, ideally, you get them out and say, let's meet in the park, let's meet somewhere else, let's meet in the cinema, because you can hire cinemas and do your pitch in the cinema, and why not do that? So there's a lot of ways that you can change the space and be somewhere else. However, people are busy. In fact, you're often now pitching virtually. And so if you don't have the possibility of changing the environment, in terms of literally going somewhere else, then you work within the parameters of the environment that you have. And sometimes you can come in early and say, I just want to, check the lighting or whatever, and you can change the lighting and just dim the lights a bit. So they come in, and if you have a candle, which I've done before, you just have like a safety candle, one, they'll come in and see that, and it's a bit like a campfire environment. So they'll just come in and sit down and somehow be quiet because they feel like they're in, candles we associate with either campfires or temples or birthdays, not bad events in general. We generally
Romantic dinners.
associate, could be, but so in general, we associate a candle with you know quietness,
Yes.
and but what it does is it brings everyone into the present moment. Now you might not be able to do a candle, so the other thing that I'm using is smell. So I have my
Okay.
little
Okay. Okay. Oh,
box
sorry.
of
Sorry. Let me just stop you there. Okay.
yeah,
Oh no, you just got into the reveal. Okay.
that's all right.
So
Carry on.
that's okay. We can pretend we didn't reveal that right now. What was the thing that I really wanted to say? The thing that I really wanted to say was contemplative. Like, because that's the environment that you want to create, is where they're actually thinking and engaging, and so you do want them contemplating what it is that you've got to offer. And I think candles are that. Sorry, that wasn't worth spoiling your reveal over. So the sense of smell is the other thing. So you've got a little box.
Yeah, look, I think that's interesting because it is, you know, these people are busy. They're probably not just talking to you. So if that's true, you want them to slow down and pay attention, and and that's what it will do.
Yes, right. So this is why I'm so excited about what it is that you're doing, is because when I was cold calling right at the beginning of my career, and when I've ever been teaching people how to cold call, you teach them, or I teach them, the AIDA thing, or my version of the AIDA thing. And the first A stands for attention. So, and this comes into what I've only really started to really understand and appreciate myself, which is this idea of transformation recently. But what I've always told people is if you're cold calling someone on the phone, you have to get their attention because they've got a million things going on in their lives. You know what I mean? Like the kids are off sick from school and the babysitter didn't show up and the dog's got to be at the vet's and they've got a dentist appointment and their mother's arriving from so and the car's got going for a service. And there's these millions of things going on. And then you're phoning up going, can I interest you in some advertising space? And they're like, no. So unless you are able to, and I'm going to use the word wrench them out of that situation, like by really getting their attention, then you're essentially wasting your time. And when people say, oh, they keep telling us they're not interested, well, of course they're not interested. There's a million things going on in their lives that they're interested in. The very best you can hope for is that they will contemplate what it is that you've got to offer, that they will hear what you're saying, understand what it is, understand what the benefits are, and actually consider if it's going to be of use to them in their lives. But that isn't going to happen until you have wrenched them out of everything else that's going on in their lives. Do you know what I mean? And I've spoken about personal things. I've not spoken about the reports that need to be in. I've not spoken about the reviews that need to happen, or the staff interviews that need to happen, or the company golf game that's coming up, or the Christmas party, or all these millions of things are going on in people's heads. And if you're not able to take them out of that situation and bring them into a conversation where they are engaging with you meaningfully, like hearing what you're saying and understanding the value of it, that they can even contemplate what's going on. So I think so much of sales just doesn't even break through that. I'm going to make up a percentage, I like to. I'm going to say 97% of all sales happens at that level, where they never manage to change to transform their situation to the point where they've created a space where they can actually engage with you meaningfully. That's why I really like what it is that you're doing. Now you're welcome to get more weird and tell us about your smelling stuff.
My smelling stuff. Well, I think the thing with sales is storytelling, and probably there's some truth in the fact that anyone from performing arts is generally pretty keen on a good story. So that makes sense that there's a connection between the world of the theatre and the world of sales. You're in the world persuading through story. And in the end, whatever you're pitching, a pitch is a story. So the first thing you want to do is capture attention, then create connection, and a human connection, which, in 90s speak would be rapport, some level of rapport, but is actually where you're having someone care. So that desire part of AIDA, attention, interest, desire, action, you're doing connection, human connection. And then the last piece is the logos or logic, and that piece is the least interesting thing, but it's actually what we usually lead with, which is the logic and reason, the return on investment, how this will look and what it's going to give. And they don't care if they don't actually have you don't have their attention. It doesn't matter what you say. And if they don't feel connected to you, like they have a human connection in some way, because if we connect to people, we're more trusting of them. Like we're more trustworthy if there's a level of connection, like, oh, you're my
Yeah.
kind of person. Then what you say in terms of the logic and reason and the return on investment is the time to introduce that. So capture attention, create a human connection, and then hit them with the logic and reason. And then that's pretty unbeatable combination, and that is storytelling.
Yes. Good. So the other thing is, I spoke to a guy recently, and he's in sales, and he says it doesn't matter if people like you or not. And I think it really matters if they don't like you, they're never going to buy from you. But he was saying about this rapport thing is a myth. I don't think it is. I'm a relationship seller. I've always been a relationship seller. From when we were selling advertising in 1995, and we had our chav list, which was the cheap advertising list, where we was just a bunch of mates who will buy something off you if you've got it at the end of the day for cheap. Do you know what I mean? And so you had to have those relationships with people. My best clients have always become really good mates. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's crucially important, and to the extent where I'm not pitching you, but I understand that everything is a pitch. This is a pitch. The reason I introduced you, the reason that we spoke about the circus and the innovation is so that the audience can have rapport with you. Do you know what I mean? So they can see that there is more to Melanie Farmer than just this idea. So this idea of rapport for me is hugely, hugely important. I define sales as there's five things, but one of them is making friends with people. Do you know what I mean? One of them is absolutely making friends with people. And I think a salesperson mission should be the mate of the customer when they're buying things that you sell. Do you know what I mean? Their specialist mate who's got specialist information on the things that they're selling. Okay, good. So I think rapport is really important, and I think this does establish that. Good. Sorry, back to you and the interesting stuff.
Well, you know what? I think I have bought things from people I don't like, but that is despite their personalities. So, they're not helping themselves by being rude and unlikable. But
Yes.
saying that, I have bought products, but I am more likely to buy again and again from someone who is at least pretending to be likable. And
Yeah.
you can create trust and a sense that you care for your customer. Um, it's not
Yeah.
that difficult to do, even if you
Mm.
actually don't. Yeah, it is. It is.
Yes. So that takes us to 40% of my definition of sales, which is um, make it easy for people to buy. It's really easy for people to buy from people they like. Do you know what I mean? So there's that. And what was the other thing? Is yeah, if you really need something, you might buy it from someone you don't like, but you're not going to go back. You're never going to go back. Do you know what I mean? And that takes us to 60% of my definition, which is making the most of leads, which is selling them, not selling them, getting referrals, but they're getting repeat business. Do you know what I mean? Building a client relationship, client customer relationship where they want to come back to you. Okay, good. We're on the same page, exactly.
Yeah.
But this is what excites me because in my sales career, I think I've been in much more formal. Maybe it's not true, but I feel like I've been presenting to boards of corporations. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if I get the little bottles of smelly stuff out, they'll think I'm really weird. Whereas I think you've been in more innovative situations where I think that would be probably more welcome, more acceptable. Tell us about the smells, Melanie
Yeah.
Farmer.
Listen. Yeah. So the sense of smell is very powerfully taking a person into the present moment. So when you've got people who are super busy and they've allowed you a 20-minute pitch and they come into the room and you haven't got time to do lighting and whatever, they're like, show us your slide deck and we're out of here onto our next meeting. So in those situations, and I'm talking about property groups, banks, insurers. These are not they're not dancing with butterflies. Like, these people are pretty serious operators. They're building airports and whatnot. So, and multiple genders, races, really quite different age ranges that it's worked on, but it's how you approach it. So I have my little kit here, and
Wow.
it's got yeah, look, guys, get
That was the
yourself a
reveal. We've got
coil.
the proper reveal.
And I'm not getting. I should just sell these online, shouldn't I? So, like, just get your little kit, and yeah, you don't need this many. You can just have like three. But I kind of go
Okay.
crazy because it's my thing. But so there, what I would do is I would say, I sit down. I would say, how are you doing today? What's going on with your energy? Are you guys feeling like you need a nap, or are you feeling pumped? How do you want to be feeling? And so, um, now, so you've got to know your audience. But in this case, I'll think of a recent one. There were 3 people we were pitching to. 2 of them were exhausted, but they wanted to relax. The third one was fairly frantic, and yet this is how they just responded, right? But he said, I want to actually feel, stimulated, excited. And I said, okay, so the one who wants to feel stimulated, excited, you have a choice of peppermint or lemon oil. And then, so he takes his lemon oil, he chose lemon oil, and he says, what am I supposed to do? And I said, you just open it up, and then you're just gonna, there you go. You just open it up, and then just go. It doesn't need to be like up your nose, right? Because you don't want to spread COVID. You literally can just be there, and you can really strongly smell because it's essential oil. Don't be getting rubbish oil. And he was like, whoa. And I'm like, yeah. And then the lady's like, oh, what else have you got? And I said, well, you guys want to relax, so you need rose or lavender. And so one chose rose, the other one chose lavender. And so she's like, oh, rose, rose, rose. And so she's like, oh, yeah. So what do I do? Yeah, yeah. And then she said, can I put some on my wrist? I'm like, sure. So she's done that. And I said, okay, are we ready? And they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So they've got to play. They've got to smell something. It because it's your sense of smell, it brings you into the present moment. And that's the main thing. You've captured attention and they are physically there. But what starts to happen quite often is that they say, this reminds me of. So they're now having a human connection, and it could be my mum having a bath, my holidays, or whatever, cookies and cream. So they start to just reflect on because smells are so personal, and they chose which one they wanted to smell. Like it reminds them of something, and then suddenly we're having a human conversation. And then I would say, are we ready? Yes. So they just stop and look, and they're ready. They're fully in the present moment. Whatever they were thinking before they took a big swig of, smell of rose oil, that's no longer in their minds because their brain is going, okay, we're encountering roses, so I've got to completely switch off of whatever else was happening because I'm in a rose garden. Yeah. So the brain is just resetting.
Okay.
So that's what I would do.
Good. And the thing is, whether the smells have the effect that you think they have or otherwise. I mean, there is something about smells inspiring memories or recalling memories. Like when you smell something, you will be reminded of something. I don't know. I'm not saying that in the most eloquent way, but I've heard that. I understand that of all the senses, smell is the one that is most likely to trigger a memory or a reminiscence or something like that. But irrespective of whether these particular fragrances have the effect that you're having, just the action of getting them to do something, like make a choice and do something, has the effect that I'm talking about. It takes them completely out of everything that's going on in their lives and makes them available to you. Because I'm a bit of a dick. I go into a training or a presentation and my attitude is, come on then, impress me. And that is like, do you know what I mean? It just is. Because, like you were talking earlier about angering audiences, I get angry. Like everyone knows you're not supposed to pitch. If you get the opportunity to speak, you're not supposed to pitch. If they pitch, I go mad. Like internally, I don't stand up and start marching about. That has happened once. But I go mad if they're just doing something they're not supposed to do. But that is my attitude, horribly. And I think that's the attitude of lots of people when they walk into a training or a presentation or a meeting is, okay, it's on you. Now you have to impress me. But of course, what that is a barrier. So aside from all of the other stuff that they've got going on in their lives, they have like this defense mechanism that they enact every time they're in that situation. So you have to get them over that. I do it, I think, not with bottles of smells, but with humor. So my thing is, if they're laughing, they're learning. Like if they're laughing, they've got over that bit at least. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think this is really, really interesting. And I'm thinking of a lot of people who could benefit from doing this, they're mainly females that I'm thinking of, because I think guys might struggle to walk into a room and get a little bag of essential oils out, and not that they should, but I think they would. Um, so yeah,
You've got to know
fascinating.
your audience, and it's not for everyone. But the main thing is that there are multiple senses. No one's going to be upset unless they're super gluten free, whatever. If you present a handful of cookies, so that's another smell. Now, if you have fresh cookies and you just bring them, that's another smell you can present, right? So there's lots of ways to introduce smell, but the point of smell isn't so much to say you've smelled lavender and it's reduced your headache or whatever. It's not like an aromatherapy, right? It's just to get the brain's attention. That's it.
Yes,
So you're
yes, yes,
just
yes,
going to get, it is also demonstrating that you are going to be someone who is open to co-design because you're giving them choice. You don't say, everyone smell the lavender, good, now we're going to do this next thing. And then one person's allergic to lavender. So, it's like actually you choose what you would like to smell right now and you have a choice of 10 things and they
yes,
do it. Or you bring in cookies or fresh bread or something like that. So something that smells, universally pretty good,
yes,
and then people like you because like you've just brought this lovely smell into the room. Or coffee
yes,
is the thing, but that's different.
yes.
So that's why selling houses, you've got fresh bread, and you feel like that reminds you of home. There's something
If they're
about
selling houses, they do that.
smell.
This is the estate agent's trip.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
baked bread
yeah, that it's
or
fresh
fresh coffee.
coffee, both.
Good.
Yeah,
Wow.
much
But
better than Pino Clean or whatever. No, or, cleaning products.
yes.
Um, better to have, yeah. So
So the thing is,
that's using, yeah.
right. So this is the thing is that because I do this a lot with my Mexican wave. I don't know if you remember my Mexican wave, but I make people do a Mexican wave whenever I stand up in front of a group of people. And it served a number of benefits. But one of the benefits was just to move them. Do you know what I mean? Just to change them a little bit so that some people hated it. One guy walked out of my training once, like halfway through the Mexican wave. I was going this way and he was packing his stuff. And when I went that way, he was already walking out. But you have to move them. Do you know what I mean? You have to move them. You have to change that. You have to change the dynamic, because the dynamic that you walk in on isn't the right one for you to be successful. Do you know what I mean? It isn't. It's the same dynamic that everyone else walked in on, and it's the people who change that dynamic that will be successful, I would say.
Yeah, and look, I think the other thing about senses is sound. So if you can have some music playing when they come in. So I often have, for example, a French cafe playlist, which I like, which is very, I mean, depends what country you're in. I don't know if that'd work in London, for example, better off playing a bit of blues or something. But certainly in Australia, I have found that you've thrown a little French cafe. Suddenly, people are traveling in Europe. They're just reminded of a time when there was some. Often they were younger. Certainly, they were on holiday. So, if you can think about introducing something, some music while they sit, and then you can turn it off and do the pitch. But those sounds are just so missed. Instead, you just go, right, well, let's have fluorescent lighting, and we're all in a bad mood already. Um, so again,
Yeah, yeah,
it's just about human connection, because people will start talking about, oh, this reminds me, and that's when you've got some attention. The other
yes,
thing, we recently pitched an alternative option to a client. So this is how we would use visual. So normally you're trying to talk through stats and use logic, and none of which is useful until you've got the human connection. So um, they were asking us to um, effectively separate functional teams and say we're going to have this functional team is going to do the journey of design thinking that we take groups on, and then we're going to have the leadership team will do, and then this other team. So there were very separate journeys. And our recommendation was you cross the streams, Ghostbusters style. You bring these different teams together and have cross teams. In fact, if you have three cross teams mixed up, that's going to probably produce more innovation just because you have increased diversity. And there's evidence for that, so you can get into that. But the way we presented that concept was by showing them a huge pile of rainbow powder being thrown into the air and colliding and making this incredible powder cloud of rainbow stuff. And that kind of just spilled out on the screen and just looked amazing. So they were looking at that going, wow, right? But what we said is we feel like everything gets more beautiful when you add diversity. We could have a red cloud and a yellow cloud and a blue cloud, but look what we can create when we cross the streams and start to mix colors. That's the way that we want to have you think about pulling these teams and putting them into cross team functions for this particular project. So two things happened. One, they got pretty excited and started talking a lot, which happen you see color because it creates joy, a memory of joy in your mind. And there's a TED talk on the power of color and circles and what it's basically we associate these things with joy. And so they became quite joyful, but also they got on board. It was a big shift. So, that's a way of thinking about visual. And I'm much more interested in the other senses that no one else is doing. So it does help you create category if you want to be different, start using these other senses. But don't neglect the senses we use the most, which is vision and hearing, but just think about how to use those differently. It doesn't have to always be you talking. It can be sound effects. It can be lighting. Sorry, it can be French cafe music. It can be different ways that you're using hearing as opposed to you talking, and
Yeah.
then vision, thinking about having things that are moving on the screen. No logos, no text. Literally just a slide of this amazing slow motion explosion of rainbow colors. Um,
Good.
and that just played on loop while they discussed, that the solution. So it's a quite nice background.
Really nice. Okay, good. So the thing is, this is like only a recent realization for me, but the gig is transformation. So like we think about pitching and selling and marketing and all these things, it is transformation. So my mission, I've only recently realized, is to transform. Like, so if I go in and I'm leading a course, then it is to take them from where they are to take them a bit further down the road. Do you know what I mean? Or to give them the opportunity to think about how they could get further down the road. And in a sales meeting, the transformation you have to enable is or initiate is from somebody who's, at least in a sales presentation, they're thinking about resolving their issue, but you transform them from somebody who's thinking about resolving their issue to somebody who's committed to resolving their issue, to somebody who's committed to resolving their issue with you. Do you know what I mean? To somebody who's committed to resolving their issue with you and committed to do the things that need to happen for it to happen. Do you know what I mean? This is the transformation that goes on. So this is where, for me, it just seems so stupid that people think that sales is just about foisting their products and services on people, when the opportunity is actually to make people's lives better. Do you know what I mean? That's the gig. That's the job, actually. But people think, oh, I've just got to get them to buy this thing. Like, because they gave me a meeting now, I've got to get them to buy it. When the much more exciting thing, the much more interesting thing, the much more useful thing is to go in there and give them the opportunity. I mean, if they've given you 20 minutes to actually consider where they are in their lives around the issue that you're busy with and how it could be better for them. Do you know what I mean? And that, for me, is much more meaningful, useful. Right, so I'm interested in your slides because are you able to show them? Can you share your screen and show us what your slides look like? Because I've not seen them. I've only heard you talk about them.
Yeah, maybe.
Because this is really interesting because I use slides as a bit of a crutch. But I mean, when I do a keynote, I say when I do a keynote, I haven't done a keynote probably in 10 years, but when I do a keynote, there will be like 15 or 20 pictures, and they are prompts for this is the next thing or that's the next thing. Do you know what I mean? So it'll be a big picture with a word. So it's basically so I don't have to remember, I can, there's 20 points or whatever the points is, 10 points or whatever. But you're doing something entirely different again, which to me sounds really interesting, and something I might steal because, when I'm doing trainings, I want people thinking positively about things for periods of the training. So if you're saying I could have this on display while I need them to be thinking positively and it's going to support that, that's stupidly useful.
Yeah. So now this slide deck I'm opening is 2 gig, so bear with me. But what it's just opening now. And that is because it's kind of video heavy and so I can show you elements of this that
Okay.
demonstrate different points, but I'll show you the that cross-functional diversity slide. So if I just open that, and by the way, we do have. I didn't want to have any text at all on this screen, but I couldn't convince my whole team to be that brave, because you really do have to be confident about what you're going to say. Because if you have no text to read and you haven't got a word on the screen, you can waffle on if you're unrehearsed. However, any good actor will know, learn your script and then get off script as soon as you can. And so, but the result of having a visual stimulus like I'm going to share is that you actually create a different type of dialogue, because it's creating the opportunity for your client to be creative with you and also fill in the gaps. They don't have to be quiet while you read. They just feel they can talk freely over the top of it, and in doing that, they're revealing all. Okay.
Yes.
So go share screen. What if I go entire screen? Here we go. There we go. Hopefully this will work. So can you see the screen?
I can, but are the people camera guest Melanie Farmer's screen? Okay, and then camera me and camera Melanie Farmer. Okay, yeah, so now they're seeing all three of us. Okay, cool. So this is interesting. Maybe they should just see us, just see the thing. So take me out. Oh no, camera Melanie Farmer screen. Okay, cool. So this is the slide.
Yeah, this is it. And you see it just plays on a loop. So I'm just replaying. And so this is on in the background and it comes to the end and stops. And then you could just say replay automated if you wanted to, but we were moving on. This was just one slide. But you see how beautiful all these colors, and it allowed them to be quite creative in what they started to share, and the discussion became a lot more interesting than if we would have said we recommend cross-functional teams.
Yes.
This is a lot more interesting discussion, thought sparker, than just having text or some statistics or evidence. It just creates a different type of connection.
And where do you get these slides from, or these videos from?
Yeah, so this, and I'll just stop sharing if that's all right.
That's all right.
Escape. Yeah, they are. These we got from Envato. So, and I'm thinking that I typed in rainbow cloud or something like that, and then you just get every kind of permutation for that. But it's quite mesmerizing. So imagine that you've come into a room and you've had 2 hours of crazy rubbish going on in your day. You've had someone in tears Janine's fighting with Ben, and you've had to deal with that situation. You've had a conversation with HR where there's a bullying complaint, and then you've got 5 reports due in 3 hours' time. You've got to put up with this pitch. So you run into the room with your 2 other colleagues, and they're all stressed, and you've had too much coffee. You sit down, you take a smell of lemon, you are presented with a window waving graph. You are already in a different place. You've been transformed, to your point. You leave that room feeling better, almost certainly, and you've got a great attitude. And then the rest of your day is probably going to just be slightly influenced by that. I will say what happened at the end of this particular pitch is one of the 3 said to me, "Do you have a spare peppermint oil that I could have?" Which I did. I should have just given it to him, but he said, "I'm going to get some because I need that every meeting." So that was good. But sometimes when we run online remote sessions, virtual sessions, let's say we've got 20 participants, we will send them a little toolkit, which would include a couple of oils, like usually about 5. And then through the program, they have the option of smelling any one of those oils. And it tells you, like, basically lemon and peppermint's going to stimulate you, and lavender and rose is going to calm you down. So depending on what you think you need as a learner, knock yourself out. And so that actually works because it just brings, if you're doing a 90-minute online session, it just sort of brings the learner into the present moment in the same way as if you were there in person. So, we will use that in our training.
Wow.
Okay.
The thing is, it's never even occurred to me. The thing is, I'm going to stand there, I'm going to talk. Do you know what I mean? So it's visual, and it's not really poor visual, and it's audio. And it's never even occurred to me to stimulate or even be thinking about the other 5, the other 4, 3 senses, however many there are. This is brilliant. Cool.
So let me give you an example of touch.
Okay, one more example of touch.
One more example, which, because we haven't talked about it, is touch. So I mentioned that I'm learning, I'm doing this degree in biomimicry, which is learning from nature. Look it up. It's amazing. Right. So biomimicry, one thing that we can do is take a pine cone or a fern and hand that out. And then we invite participants to look at the fern and notice any strategies that this plant is using to be successful in life. And what they notice is that there's a very repeatable pattern, and that leaves are big and they become smaller, and that some of them are curled under. And so that it just invites a different way of learning from nature, thinking of nature as a mentor. And they notice the same patterns in a pine cone. And so these are things that we would bring in when we're talking about biomimicry and using touch in that way, so that they're actually handling parts of nature and, I guess, reconnecting with nature. But also it completely changes the way they think about running their own team or thinking about an organizational structure, and what might work in nature that we haven't thought about that could translate back to our own world. So, but what they've done is actually just use their hands. And of course, there's many examples of Lego and clay and things like that, build it, make it, draw it. So there's a lot of that. More, we don't really do those in pitches so much, but you can take a pine cone into a pitch and say, we're going to start somewhere and create a pattern. So all this is going to cascade out like an echo. Hold on to this pine. This is exactly what's going to happen to your organization. You're going to have this first few down the bottom, and then the next thing you know, you'll all be creating this pattern of habits and behaviors across your whole. You're going to start to look like a pine cone in a good way. So you can use touch in that way.
Yes. Wow. I absolutely love it. I really love it. And I think you've transformed me. I'm going to do some of these things. I don't know if I'm ready to be carrying a box of essential oils with me, but those slides, I love the idea of those slides. Um, so I suppose if you want to have an impassioned debate, then you would just put something that's deeply red on the screen. And I mean, I'm going to start testing. I'm going to start playing with it. I'm going to start seeing what actually happens. Okay, cool. Are you ready for some good news?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, so the good news is I think you're eminently qualified to talk to us about using innovative sales techniques. So that's the good news. We can go to question number 2. But you've kind of told us this already. You've given us a sense of who you're working with and how it's working. So the question is who you're working with, how you're adding value to their lives. So to give people a sense, my sense of kind of your industries is you're busy in healthcare, you're busy in like government type departments. Is there some police type stuff going on there? So these are, maybe I should take back what I said earlier, these are serious environments. You know, these aren't alternative environments. Do you know what I mean? These are very practical, very serious environments.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we do a lot of work with emergency services, banks, insurance, property. And if you look back in the last 3 years, these are the sectors that have been so deeply impacted. Airlines as well, we work with airlines. So I think when you think about what they have had to endure, um, it's critical for those sectors, I think, to reset. And in fact, we are doing a 2-day offsite. I don't know when this is going to air and whatever, but in June, which is taking all of these sort of strategies and the different senses to awaken your own inner insight. You know, so you're having innovative ideas and you're resetting your brain, resting it from all of the graphs and Excel and PowerPoint. So we're having a 2-day innovation retreat. So these are two words that don't normally go together: innovation and retreat. You will have a spiritual retreat or an innovation conference. It's neither of those things. We're using the experiences that I've talked about, using all the senses to create innovation and solve some of the problems and challenges um, creatively when we've run out of energy. So that's where the retreat part comes in. So it's not too much content. It is actually the opportunity to relax, reset, and re-energize. So the push for this actually came from emergency services and health, because there's just the echo of fatigue and burnout. And how about this for a statistic? Australia is the most burnt out country in the world. On average, our employees and workers in Australia, on average, express burnout at 62%. The rest of the world, if I'm going to get this right, is 48%, significantly less. So I think Australians generally work hard, play hard, and then we did play hard and carried on with work hard. And that is possibly one of the reasons we are registering as the most burnt out.
Yes.
And there's different measures for why that would be. But it just struck me, this is only recently, like a couple of months ago, that I kind of unpacked all of this. But if that's true, then it's an emergency. Like, we really need to stop that, and we need to rest. And I think the whole world is experiencing burnout. 48% burnout is not a great number anyway, let alone 62. But
It's
um,
ridiculous.
right, it's important. It's like, it doesn't really, all this other stuff, profit, disruption, burnout is every. If you cannot think properly because you're burnt out, then it really doesn't matter how many new methods you learn. You need to have reflection time. You've got to
Yes.
process. And we do try to cram a lot of information into our poor little brains, and our brains haven't changed for millennia that much. So our brains are sort of, they're used to sort of, tracking, you know, whatever we were hunting, and or how to grow vegetables or something. And now we're expecting it to do all this stuff, learn more and more and more to the point of burnout.
Yes.
So And I did learn this as well, that it's something like it uses 30% more cognitive ability to have an online meeting versus an in-person meeting. 30% more energy. And if we don't have breaks between meetings and we're just having back-to-back meetings, and by the way, globally, this is a Microsoft report, at the meetings we are having increased by 252% in the last 3 years. Now, that will be attributable to the pandemic, but meetings have gone up by 252%, and online meetings are having this depletion, like 30% more energy. That's a disaster. What a combination. So, I mean, we actually need to have reflection. And this is slightly off
Yes.
topic, but it is about using all our senses. So we're just pushing our vision to a point of breaking point by expecting people to watch a screen and appear, focused. But when you're in a meeting, and even better if you're in a cafe meeting, you're looking around, you're taking in a lot of other stimulus. You're not just sitting there looking at a screen. It is far
Yes.
less draining if so if you're trying to pitch online, good luck. That's tough. Um, there you go.
There you
Send
go.
them oil through the yeah. But
Okay, good. So this comes to another thing that I think is really important, which is I think also counter to the idea that you're just out foisting your products and services on people. Like if you are seriously adding value in the world, you have a responsibility to sell that product to them. Do you know what I mean? If, like you say, your customers are addressing these really important issues of burnout, innovation, productivity, in really serious situations like health and emergency services, then you are duty bound. You have to make sure that you get through to them. You have to make sure that they understand the value. You have to transform them from somebody who's sitting in a meeting expecting to be wowed and not prepared to invest anything in it to somebody who's open and engaged and ready to contemplate and collaborate. So that's what I think. And that comes to the other thing that I think is really important now, which is about putting yourself in the game. Like you say, if you're going to put up one of these animation video type slides, you need to be sure of what you're going to say. Well, be sure of what you're going to say, is what I would say. I sound like Jordan Peterson now. Be sure. But because why wouldn't you? Like, why do you need slides as a crutch? Do you know what I mean? It all kind of suggests again that you're not really adding value in the world, that you don't really know the value that you're adding in the world. Or do you know what I mean? It's like if you are genuinely in the world adding value, then put yourself in the game. You are duty bound, I think, to transform these people into people who are now busy with you, resolving their issues, having better lives, careers, etc., etc. Okay, good. So that takes us. We've got to the time that we scheduled. Are we still cool? We're probably going to need another 5 or 10 minutes.
yeah, no, I think we're good.
Okay,
I
super.
just have in my mind, I'm thinking about titles. I mean, I feel like it's multi-sensory sales. That's kind of
Too late, Melanie Farmer.
where this.
Too late. We needed that an hour and a half ago.
Listen,
Multi-sensory
I
sales.
have good ideas. I can't promise they arrive at the right time.
That's good. We needed, because what we're doing at the beginning is we're driving the keyword, because that bit gets transcribed. And we're like
Right.
doing that for Google, you see. So if we knew what the keyword was at the beginning, that's the time. We could have said the keyword lots of times. But I can tag it in that way. Multi-sensory sales. Okay, good. So question number 3. This is a quick fire question. So you need to answer me this in a minute, because when the universe aligns itself and I get a minute to cut out these minutes, I'm going to put them on TikTok or something. The question is, what's your recommendation then for people who are interested and want to get busy with what we're now calling multi-sensory sales?
Multi-sensory sales. I would say pick one sense that you haven't um, catered to in your pitching, and that's going to be either hearing, smell, taste, touch, or vision.
Yeah,
Pick one of the senses you've not used, and think about one way to try something with that sense, and ask for permission with a client to try that out next time you are doing a pitch.
excellent.
And
Good.
I'd love to hear how that goes. I'd really love to hear what people come up with. And make it personal. Because, I mean, oils are not for everyone, but you might be great at baking cakes. You might be, really great at, whiskey tastings. I mean, like, whatever you want to do. If you know your client and you think this would work, be brave, try different things, and make it fit with your personality.
Yeah, and 100% let us know because we want to know what works. It seems to me that this is so eminently sensible, obvious. There's no risk in this. Do you know what I mean? The risk is you might look a little bit silly. But even if you look a little bit silly, you've still done the job of getting them thinking about something other than, I've got to sit in this shitty meeting now for 20 minutes and listen to this rubbish. Do you know what I mean? Which I think is the attitude that lots of people come with. So I think this is a risk-free. So my recommendation, yeah, I think that's a great recommendation. Pick 1 cent, invest in it, let us know. We want to know what works. Okay, good. So question number 4, what should people read or what content should people consume? Is there good content out there around this? I mean, I'll be very honest. I've never heard anyone else speak about this in my life.
Wait for my book, because I would say I haven't found anything that does this, like
Right.
connects the multi-sensory to the business world and this sort of world. Um, but, you know, if you want to learn about biomimicry, Innovation Inspired by Nature is the book you want to read by Janine Benyus. That is really the first and best book that unpacks biomimicry. And that might inspire you with lots of touch ideas that come from nature. But yeah, in terms of the senses, look, there's a lot of stuff in neuroscience that is probably worth just googling and seeing what. But I think it's such an emerging, so to the point where I don't know anyone else who does it this way, or
Okay.
even
So they're
has
hearing this
contributed.
exclusively on Talk Marketing for the first time.
World first, here it is. Yeah, I honestly don't know who else does this.
Okay.
Maybe Disney.
Cool. Maybe Disney. All right, good. Do you want some really good news?
Go on.
We're almost at the end. I just need to check in with you and see how you're feeling. This is slightly different from you. You have done one Talk Marketing. We did do a Stuff We Love about biomimicry, and we've done, Lord knows, 20 odd newses. But how are you feeling particularly about your experience of having appeared for a second time now on the Talk Marketing show?
Well, I feel a bit more prepared, weirdly. Um, I think my last time was very broad ranging. Let's put it that way. I
Yes.
wandered over the hills and back, whereas I feel like I probably stuck to the script if there was one a little bit more this time.
Yeah, I think this one was a
Yeah,
little bit more focused. But to be fair, the first time we did it, we hadn't spoken in almost 20 years. So, there was
yeah.
that little bit of weirdness as well to get over. Now we speak every couple of weeks, so that's really good. Okay, super cool. There is intent behind the question, of course. Now I'm going to ask you to recommend a couple of people who you think might also enjoy or maybe just endure to come and have a chat with me on the Talk Marketing Show. Is there a couple of people you can introduce me to who you think might enjoy that? Like your sister, for
Yeah,
example. We've spoken about that, haven't we?
yeah. Well, she can't
Oh, no.
as much as she would like to. So she did reply and say that she's not permitted to
Okay.
uh, to speak, um, which I can kind of understand. They're trying to manage any formal um, media engagements and have them be through a very specific, So she can't.
Okay.
But saying that, she was very keen to listen to and share our podcast. So so
Okay.
she's going to do that.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So the other, I mean, see, because if it's sales and marketing, there's the connections I have are more in innovation, which are probably many of them similar to yours. That there's a great, actually, you know what, Lexa Moray would be great. We interviewed her, and that was our most successful podcast so far. She's great to interview. She is the head of marketing and comms at the Biomimicry Institute, and yeah, happy to introduce you to her. So she is responsible for sales and marketing, which is a help, and she's got qualifications in that as well. But she has the job of promoting everything from the Biomimicry Institute.
Wow.
So I
Okay,
think
cool. And I would just love to speak to somebody called Lexa More.
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yes. Okay, cool. Okay, I am putting you on the spot a little bit. Who else do you think I should talk to? I'm not going to let you off the spot.
Who else? Well, I mean, there's innovation people.
Yes.
I guess, yeah, I have to have a think about it. I honestly don't, because a lot of people have moved around that I'm thinking, oh, I'd love to interview such and such, but they've actually
Yes.
moved on. Like there's the guy, he was the head of innovation for Novartis, but he's now, a lot of these people are starting their own businesses. Like this is what happens post-pandemic. They're all now running their own businesses.
So the thing is, they probably really like to get some exposure, maybe. Okay,
Yeah,
let's
that's
continue this
true.
another time. Maybe start thinking about who you know and how they might fit. I'm not desperate for
Yeah,
people at all necessarily, but it's universe led. It goes to people who are recommended, and then I don't chase anyone very hard. Like I don't chase anyone very hard. So it really is who the universe recommends, and then who the universe delivers. It's all universe. It's all kind of biomimicry-ish. The way it's a natural evolution that's going on here.
organic. There you are.
Organic. Let's go organic. Okay, super cool. So the really good news, Melanie Farmer, is that we got to the end. Thank you so much for being here again. Hey?
Yeah, fantastic. Really, really a lot of fun.
Cool.
I've got to take my own advice now. It's given me some ideas for what I want to do next. Pitch.
Okay,
I've given
super
myself
cool.
ideas.
And when you test those things, you can come and let us know about those as well. Thank you for taking the time to check out this episode of the Talk Marketing Show. If you found this interesting and useful, then YouTube thinks you're going to enjoy this one. And this is the latest thing that we've posted. If you haven't yet and you could take a second to like, share, subscribe and comment, then that will give us the motivation to continue on this epic, epic journey.